Damn, that must have been loud. Oh my god. How many
Hey y'all.
Oh, how many? Wait, battle Xbox 360 versus PS3? Come on, bro. No. I can't watch. This is too long. The other video was like 20 minutes long and it took forever. This one is 32 minutes long. Not a console war video. Let me watch just a tiny bit of it. Hold on. Just a little bit. Just a tiny bit.
Scott here. Apparently my input on wars throughout history is extremely important, so it finally makes sense why after the French Revolution in most history textbooks it just says, but what would Scott think? It's the middle of class in 2011 and all these kids are discussing politics, which is better, the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. One of them asks, Scott, which one do you prefer? And you ruin your credibility. Nintendo. Platform wars will forever be a thing. When you don't have anything better to do in your life, why not defend plastic? I mean, when you blow thousands of dollars on a new computer or phone, you don't want to actively admit, yeah, yours is better.
He said, Kunta. I don't know.
I'm the idiot. You want to make sure your purchase is justified and have everybody agree with you that the way you spent $400 is better than how I spent $400.
I don't know.
This kind of debate
Thank
is
you for the
especially
100
between
bits.
platforms that are largely similar but have various minor pros and cons between each of them. And nowhere was that more of a thing than with the console wars of the 7th generation of video game consoles. 5 entered the ring. One was a runaway success, we don't count that. The other 2 were portable systems, they had their own fish to fry, so we were left with 2 systems, the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Video game fans have always been pitted against each other based on the consoles they used each and every generation, but never before were 2 consoles so perfectly balanced between their strengths and weaknesses. One console did well in one area while the other faltered, but the other did well in an area the other couldn't even spell right. It's still up for debate nowadays which one is better. It's a very similar situation to what happened with the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo back in the 90s. The difference was, the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were more so civil tyrants, the Genesis and Super Nintendo were only interested in what each other's blood tasted like. Console wars have definitely settled down between the companies over the years. What once was a war turned into a competitive picnic. But the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were truly out to get each other. They didn't like each other one bit, which meant I know what I'm gonna do tonight. I'm gonna recall the history of these consoles duking it out, and afterwards we'll pit the two against each other in a variety of categories to see which one I end up personally preferring. I plan the best parties. The video game landscape and who was on top was and still is consistently changing. Atari was king until they were stupid. Nintendo overtook gaming for a while until Sega came along with the Genesis and actually outsold Nintendo's offerings for a bit there until they tried to succeed so hard they failed. Nintendo took over again, but then Sony came into the picture with the PlayStation, and that blew up. If anything, this shows that when a new generation of systems comes along, it's somebody here who'll take the crown. It's never always Nintendo or always Sony, but it's never Sega. So, if you have the resources to create a video game console, go for it. F***ing go for it. You have nothing to lose except everything. You have the potential to be the best-selling game console of all time. I'm telling my kids that. So when Sony was working on their next console, the PlayStation 2, Microsoft entered the ring by announcing the Xbox. That should give Sony a run for their money. I'm sure Sony keeps this photo on their nightstand. What happened here? I mean, it makes sense for Sony to win, but by this much? Well, lots of things added to this happening. While I made the point that just because a company did well one generation doesn't mean that success will transfer over to the next, that most certainly happened here. The PlayStation was a huge hit. Over 100 million consoles sold.
You saw how tiny that one was?
Next. That most certainly happened.
I remember when I had this little tiny PlayStation, my dad bought it for me, and he bought, like, Spyro the Dragon for it, and that shit was good. I played, I think, Spyro 3. It was like Spyro Ripto's Rage or some shit. That was such a good game on this console, man. I love how small this console is.
A huge hit. Over 100 million consoles sold. With the next one on the horizon being definitively called the PlayStation 2, what did you think would happen? It's like everybody loves bread. Bread 2 comes out, it's gonna sell well. The PS2 launched in the year 2000. Microsoft released the Xbox 1 year later, so not only did Sony get a year's head start on Microsoft, which meant by the time the Xbox released, the PS2 already had a year's worth of games in its library, but they also had brand recognition on their side. People knew what a PlayStation was. The Xbox scared people. Plus, DVDs were getting big at the time. The PlayStation 2 was
Oh my god, bro. Yo, when DVDs was coming out and then the PS2 was DVD compatible, everywhere that I went, I remember when I was a kid, like if I went to a cousin's house, if I went to a friend's house, they'd be like, yo, you want to watch a movie? And I was like, yeah. And they will pop out their PS2 and they'd be like, yo, hold on, let me get my DVD. Pop it in the PS2. Then you get that weird loading screen with the with all the fucking cubes and shit.
DVD player straight out the box. It had amazing.
It was a DVD player and a video game player. Like, it was so fucking cool. So cool.
Games, plus pretty much all the third-party games you could possibly ask for. Even though the Xbox had a lot of these things going for it, they were only in spirit. It could play DVDs, as long as you bought the DVD remote accessory. Without this, you couldn't play DVDs. That was stupid.
That was dumb, really? It could play DVDs, but you needed to get the controller? Oh, that's a fat fucking L, dude.
Going for it, they were only in spirit. It could play DVDs, as long as you bought the DVD remote.
That's so stupid. Oh, it's so you could plug it in. That's so dumb.
Accessory. Without this, you couldn't play DVDs. That was stupid. It had exclusive games. It had third-party stuff, but most exclusives, well, not bad. It didn't really shake the world, and a lot of the biggest third-party games, while running and looking far better on the Xbox, came out a while after the PS2 versions did. This little guy put up a fair fight, but it obviously wasn't going to beat out the PlayStation 2. By the time it came out, Sony basically already won that generation. But of course, Microsoft wasn't discouraged by getting second place. People love this thing. Look at it. It's so buff. For a first timer, the Xbox did quite well. It beat out Nintendo's GameCube in terms of sales, and it did have at least one exclusive series that mattered: Halo. Most third-party games you'd want to play that generation did eventually come to the system. For a newcomer console, the Xbox did about as well as it could have possibly done. And Microsoft had the deep pockets to support it. I mean, this system rarely turned a profit ever. They may have sold a decent amount of them, but they were losing money on this thing. For most companies, if their first console didn't turn a profit, they normally say, let's get out of here. But Microsoft can afford to do anything they want. They have an endless supply of money. They can launch a game console, go to space, go bankrupt, whatever they want. They have so much money, and the Xbox planted itself as a worthwhile brand. So
Shrek
Microsoft
2
didn't
the
even think of it.
game.
They never learned to count. The Xbox 360 was revealed on May 12th, 2005 on MTV because TBS was busy that day. Microsoft was serious with making the system a massive deal and something that Sony should have been legitimately scared of. Instead, they were pretty confident with their next console, the PlayStation 3's success. I mean, after your last
Nah,
two systems-
son. The PS3 just looks way better than the PS2. Yo. I said, wait, what? The PS3 looks better than the Xbox 360. Xbox 360 had that curve, right? But the PS3 had the sleek black, nice, slick black. That shit was glossy as fuck. That shit had the craziest big hump curve. Come on, man. It was thick. It was thick, and it was heavy. Shit was heavy as fuck.
Systems were the most popular systems in history. It's easy to get a big head and think anybody will buy something with the word Sony on it. Shortly after the Xbox 360's reveal, Sony revealed info on the PS3, how it was leaps and bounds more technologically advanced than Microsoft's offerings. I mean, this thing had it all. 2 USB ports, 3 more USB ports, another USB port.
Oh my god, remember?
The entire system was built around something called the cell processor, which was a highly advanced technology that nobody knew how to use. It was pretty difficult for programmers to actually utilize the cell processor and make games for it. But Sony was so arrogant after the past 2 generations, there was this mentality that developers would learn to program for it because we made the PlayStation 2, everybody loves us. Like, if the cell processor takes a lot of time to figure out, developers will spend all their time making games for the PS3 because it's so difficult, they won't have time to make games for the Xbox 360. Sony knew they had brand recognition on their side, so decided to make the ultimate video game box. Backwards compatible with all generations of PlayStation, the most powerful architecture imaginable, a compact flashcard reader because you need that. They weren't constructing the world's most video game console, they were making a government supercomputer. It could do anything and everything you'd want a thing to do. It could play the up-and-coming high-def Blu-ray discs. Sony was banking on that being a huge selling point, much like how the PS2 playing DVDs was. It had the best-looking games and the most USB ports. Sony knew people would flock to the PlayStation again instead of the Xbox, and they decided to make the greatest device they could because they knew people would buy it regardless of the cost, The Xbox 360 launched later.
Yo, that
The Xbox,
cost.
and they decided to make the greatest device they could because they knew people would buy it regardless of the cost,
Yo, that price, yo, back in the day, man, I'll never forget when this shit dropped on the front of the newspaper in the New York Post. There was an article where a dude sold his fucking BMW to get this console. A man sold his car just to get this console. I gotta see if I could find that article, dude. I remember it. It was on a newspaper. Maybe it's on the internet somewhere. Let me see. Man sells car for PS3. Damn, it's not there? Damn, this was so long ago though, man. I doubt this shit's gonna be anywhere on the internet. Like if there was like, I wish there was like a way, what's that website called? Wayward Back Machine, where you could go back in time and see if somebody posted a newspaper. I don't think that newspaper is there. But I remember I saw it in the paper when I was a kid. But man, this man sold his fucking car.
Of the cost. The Xbox 360 launched later in 2005, with the PlayStation 3 being slated for spring 2006 until being delayed to holiday 2006. Much
Yeah,
like how the
way
PS2
back
released a
machine.
year ahead of the competition, I feel that the Xbox 360 doing the same did numbers to its success. Microsoft had a year head start on Sony, which meant by the time the PS3 would launch, they'd have a beefy library of games at their disposal, a potentially better price point of the console, a larger install base of players, which was a big deal in the era of online gaming. Plus, they were the first console to show off what at the time was next-gen graphics.
Nah, I gotta keep it a stack with you too. During that time, Sony was losing the console wars. And I remember, because I was the loser in that time. I was a Sony head. Everybody and their grandma was like, yo, you got that Xbox 360, bro? That's the console. We got voice chat. We could play music at the same time that we're playing games. And me with my PlayStation head, I'm like, yo, I can't even play music at the same time as video games. I can't have party chats, none of that shit. And I was like, the only way we could do a party chat is if we're in the same video game lobby. We couldn't have like our own chat. And we were losing that war so bad. That's why now I be trying to shit on Xbox a lot, because I be like, yo, now y'all losing the war. But you know.
So by the time the PS3 would come out, it wouldn't have been as
The
revolutionary.
PS3 lost
But
so
Sony
bad.
couldn't care less about Microsoft. They were confident that people would drop everything in their life at the moment for the right to buy a PlayStation 3. But then during their E3 2006 press conference, Sony said, you know what, we haven't f***ed up in a while, let's do it. This conference will always live in infamy, the moment that many stopped looking at the PS3 with excitement and instead with embarrassment. The entire presentation was awkward.
Wow, Heavenly Sword? Bro, I haven't seen that game in a long time. Why haven't they ever made a new Heavenly Sword, bro?
Many stopped looking at the PS3 with excitement and instead
It was like a girl and she was like in like a God of War kind of thing.
the entire presentation was awkward with how lines were
Yo, and they got the OG PSP, such a good
converted
console.
in games honestly looking pretty boring. A lot of this stuff didn't look that much better than what Microsoft was putting out, which made it sting even more when it ended with a mortgage.
The 20-gigabyte PlayStation 3 will retail for $499 US and 549 Canadian dollars. And the 60-gigabyte PlayStation 3 for $599 US, $659.
That was so much
I
money
didn't even know
though.
that much money existed. To be fair, Sony was taking a loss on PlayStation 3s at that price point. These things were costing far more to produce than what they were selling them for. However, that didn't matter. It was still clear. Nobody wanted to spend $600 for the right to play this. This was when a lot of people sprung on the Xbox 360. The price point was fairly solid, and you got pretty much all the games that were coming to PS3.
Yeah, I remember, man. That was another super big reason why Sony was losing, because that price was too high. And I remember, man, everybody was copping. I'm telling you, in that time, it was so hard being a Sony head because everyone would just shit on you. They'd be like, wait a minute, you got a PS3? And I was that one guy that was like, look at this motherfucker with his PS3. Dumbass motherfucker. You spent $600 on that whack-ass console. You ain't got no games. And I'm there like, yo, nah, that's why we out here, bro. Yo, it was so cheap, dude. You can just spend $2.99. You can just start playing with your boys on Xbox 360. I'm telling you, that time Xbox was the dominate.
I looked under my desk. I still got my 360K.
Does the 360 still work?
PS3, so you can't blame anybody for going this route. Holiday rolled around and the PS3 launched right before the Nintendo Wii, and people were going nuts. People were camping out waiting to scoop up these consoles and immediately sell them on eBay for a profit. I do this with Robitussin during flu season, I get it, but people were taking this incredibly seriously. The PS3 was expected to be a smash hit. What a failure, I'm open to that too. For the first few years of its life, the PS3 was the laughingstock of the gaming industry. It was overpriced and didn't have a ton of compelling exclusive games.
Bro, shout outs to my mom still to this day. When the Wii dropped, she waited online outside 3 a.m. in front of Nintendo World to get me a fucking Wii. Shout out to my mom. I don't care. I will never forget that shit. When my mom told me that, and she was there brick early just to get me my console for Christmas, I still told my mom thank you because of that. Because I'm like, there's no way you waited outside. Like, imagine in wintertime waiting in Manhattan outside in the cold. You know how cold it was at that time too? She waited at like 3 a.m. to get the fucking console for me. And then I remember when she still surprised me with the Wii. I think I like almost like levitated like SpongeBob. Like in that one clip where the wolves start howling, I almost started levitating. I also got to tell my mom that she has to find that video of me opening up my Nintendo 64 when I was a kid. Like, I think that footage has to be somewhere. I wish I could show chat because the way I reacted is such meme material.
Multi-platform titles often ran worse on the system because, one, the Xbox 360 was easier to develop for, so developers would make games for it first and then hastily port it over to PS3, and B, the Xbox 360 was more popular, so developers would make games for it first and then hastily port it over to PS3. I mean, that thing had a bigger library and more exclusives initially, with a lower starting price compared to the PS3. It was obvious if you wanted a new console, comparing the two, the 360 just made more sense. And now the PS3 ads were fucking weird. See, that just shows how arrogant Sony was at the time. They thought, oh, we'll creep people out with our PlayStation 3 commercials. It's the PS3, people want it regardless. But the PS3's problems didn't mean the 360 was having the greatest of times. More and more hardware malfunctionings were occurring. This model was notorious for failures, showing off the infamous red ring of death, which meant your system was pretty much donezo. While it was doing better sales-wise, Microsoft had to deal with repairs, spending a crazy amount on warranties, and overall just had to live with the bad press that 360 got when it came to reliability. So,
Nah, I can't even hold you. When that red ring of death started, yo, I'm not gonna lie, man. My little ass, my little teenage ass, my console war head ass, when that red ring came, I swear, like, I got it from the shadows on some... straight up on some... Yo, the Xbox heads in my school, I was like, what happened to your console? Oh, you gotta wrap that shit in a towel, right? So it could lose the red ring of death. You gotta literally suffocate your shit so it could come back to life, right? You bitch ass motherfucker, we ain't having that problem with Sony, right? I could play my shit with no problems. That shit got the right ventilation. Oh my goodness. What a time. What a time. Then PS3 got hacked. Yes! And then, and it was like 2 months. It was like 2 months. I couldn't even freaking play video games. And I lost my sanity. And you know what, chat? You know what I did? You know what I did during those 2 months that I could not play? I actually went down to my Chinese hookup. And I bought a used Xbox 360 from him. And the second those Sony servers came back up, I stopped playing that Xbox so fast. So fast. And then I remember, I think Pokemon Diamond. That's what I did with my Xbox. I remember. You know what I did with my Xbox, chat? When Pokemon Diamond and Pearl first came out. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. When it first came... No. It wasn't Diamond and Pearl. I think it was X and Y. Yeah, no. No, it was X and Y. When X and Y came out, I sold my Xbox 360 in GameStop so I could get in-store credit. So I could trade it for a DS. That was the X and Y version of the DS. I traded it in.
Sony code. You are no longer a Son fanboy. You are a true faker. Sinalaya bun him at the stake, chat.
No, please, Delta, please. Please. Delta's just like pinning me on the cross. I'm like, Delta, come on. Delta, what about the good old times? Please, Delta. I'm sorry, sir. You are no longer a Sony fan.
You really had to pick your poison. Within the first year, Sony took drastic steps to improve the PlayStation 3, cutting the price, removing features that were sort of worthless to reduce costs. I will never forget UCF card reader. More and more.
Yo, when they removed the card reader, so wait a minute. So is that why the price dropped for Sony? They removed the backwards compatibility as well as the card reader so they could reduce the price of the console. Is that what they did? I'm telling you, Sony was losing hard in that time.
That Sony water. It don't belong to you.
Come on, Akuro, please, come on. I need just a sip, please. Come on, give me my water. You said, I think those were one of the reasons. It was one of the reasons, yes. Damn. But I can't lie. A lot of people were saying that the PS3, it got the yellow light of death when it had all those extra components in the console. When it had the card reader as well as the backward compatibility, it got the yellow light faster. It was oh my god, what a weird time in gaming.
Exclusives were coming out.
And it was so bad because everyone was like, why are all these new consoles malfunctioning and dying while the Super Nintendo is still working, Nintendo 64 is still working, PlayStation 1 and 2 is still working perfectly fine. You could leave a PlayStation on, you could leave a Nintendo Wii on for like 10 years and them shits, nothing will happen. I remember one time when I was still living with my sisters, we used to leave the Nintendo Wii on day and night for like years. And then whenever we wanted to play it, we would just switch the input and then we would start playing the Nintendo console. Those things don't die. You said GameCube error, it does error? Yo, the Wii, the GameCube, I mean, I've never had issues with those things.
Oh, like Little Big
Planet. Little Big Planet was such a fucking good game when Media Molecule made the shit. Media Molecule made this game have life.
And Uncharted, but right when Sony was starting to turn things around, Microsoft just had to release Halo 3. This may be one of the biggest moments in gaming history.
Yo, Halo 3, while my cousin was playing his Xbox 360 and he copped Halo 3, that's why I have a soft spot for Halo and Microsoft. Even though I shit on Microsoft a lot, I have a soft spot for Halo. I was playing Halo so much with my cousins, dude. So fucking much. Halo 3 is like, might be top 5 favorite games of all time. Halo 3 was so good, man.
Just based on the energy surrounding the launch alone. Everybody knew Halo 3 was launching. It was a big deal.
Halo 3 was crazy.
Microsoft kind of gave up. The 360 no doubt had loads of fantastic exclusive games, but most of the big ones came in the first few years of that system's life. Gears of War, Viva Pinata, Crackdown, it all led up to Halo 3, and then afterwards, I mean, sequels to these games came out, but really, Microsoft kind of got content with where they were at and stopped fighting nearly as hard. Sony continued to fund exclusive games and reduce the PS3's price until finally giving it a much-needed redesign that was quite a bit smaller and was featured in...
Oh, I remember. They made it much slimmer and smaller.
a new ad campaign that highlighted the system's unique features. Microsoft kept at it with redesigning the system's user interface, offering avatars like Nintendo's Mii's, and focusing on media consumption with streaming apps. As time went on, it felt like the roles were reversing. Sony was trying to win over the hardcore gamer with excellent games, while Microsoft was trying to transform the Xbox 360 into this all-in-one entertainment hub for everybody, which was the initial mission statement.
Nah, you know what it was? It's because they were trying to do that PlayStation Home shit. I know a lot of motherfuckers in the chat don't remember PlayStation Home. Oh man, that shit was fire.
The PlayStation 3. Both companies tried their hands at motion controllers to combat the Nintendo Wii. Sony had the PlayStation Move and Microsoft the Kinect. While both were equally f***ing stupid in their own right, the Move felt more like a way to turn your PS3 into a Wii if you're into that sort of thing. The Kinect felt more like something Microsoft wanted everybody to have and positioned it as a replacement for the Wii. You could control the games with your body. That's insane. I f***ing hated my thumbs anyways. The Kinect did insanely well, much better than the PlayStation Move. But that came at a cost. While Sony was focusing on making legitimately good video games to win back the trust of the gaming community, Microsoft fully shifted the Xbox brand into casual all-in-one entertainment after
Yeah. That's like the downfall of Xbox. Like, why did they take that shift? Like, they were like, yo, instead of being like what we were, like a cool gaming company dropping all this crazy shit, then they had like this shift of just like, let's try to copy Nintendo and be family friendly. Oh, look at all these games about fitness and movement and yo, yeah, they completely just went a different route. And then I feel like that's where like their downfall slowly started to happen from here.
Released a redesigned system that actually worked this time. The last couple of years of these systems' active lives before their successors released were fairly different. Sony just kept pumping out exclusive after exclusive, getting games to come to PS3 with exclusive content, while Microsoft kept focusing on Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Kinect games, with Call of Duty thrown in there with all the DLC coming to Xbox first. The 360 was still ahead, but was losing the support of the hardcore community, while Sony was doing wonders to regaining trust and rebuilding the PS3's image. While Sony still had tons of trouble occur during this time, most notably the PlayStation Network hack and outage of 2011, they stood strong and focused on making the PlayStation 3 the gamer's console. Both systems received one more redesign later in their lives. These ones focused on giving us consoles so cheap I can try to break it over my knee. Keyword try. Sony had one more ace up their sleeve with The Last of Us releasing in summer of 2013, right before the launch.
Damn, was The Last of Us really that banger at that time to like put nails in coffins like that? Like, he making it seem like Last of Us blew shit up.
Their next console, the PlayStation 4. One of the most critically acclaimed games of all time as an exclusive. That got a lot of people to pick up a PlayStation 3 mere months before the next PlayStation was coming out. That's pretty impressive. And throughout all of this, while the Xbox 360 was winning the war for most of the generation, when all was said and done, it was actually Sony who ended up winning. Yeah, this is still crazy to me. I still always look at the Xbox 360 as the winner in terms of sales, and while that was true for the majority of its life, the PlayStation 3 picked up so much steam later on, it actually ended up winning.
A classic underdog story.
Wait, what? No. Wait. What do you mean it beat? But wait, how did it beat Xbox at that time? In sales? Or like, did you guys say they won the war? Yo, I don't know, man. In my honest opinion, I still gotta say Xbox won. I mean, 360. The Xbox 360 won in that time frame really hard against the PS3. But I don't know. Maybe PS3 at the end, because I remember in that time, like at the end is when they started like climbing back up hard.
And while that was true for the majority of its life, the PlayStation 3 picked up so much steam later on, it actually ended up winning.
A classic underdog story. It always warms my heart to see a multi-billion-dollar corporation win at the end of the day. But who really won? Sony.
But who do I think wins overall?
Wait, so, he had the stats.
Win at the end of the day. But who really won?
Oh, wow. Yo, I didn't know Sony won that. Oh, shit. Yo, so PlayStation 3, 87.4 million. And Xbox 360, 84 million. Oh, shit. That was a close. Oh, I didn't even know. That's crazy.
Sony.
But who do I think wins overall? So it's come down to this. I'm gonna pit these two consoles against each other in 9 categories and see which one ends up winning based on my preferences. And my personal history with these consoles was I was always a Nintendo guy. My state's government already knows that. But in 2011, I had enough of being the only guy in school who didn't have something that couldn't play Barrel Blast. So I had to decide, did I want an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3? Both had U-Star 2, so it really didn't matter. I ended up going with the Xbox 360, but always wondered if things would be different on the other side. I finally bit the bullet 5 years later and bought a used red PlayStation 3. I barely used this thing. But this is the perfect opportunity to play this for the first time and play this to bring back memories and see which one comes out on top. Both of these systems have had 3 different designs released throughout their lives, and the first iterations are both absolutely iconic. This system looks like a fun box. This system looks like a space heater. I don't think the original PS3 looks bad by any means, but it looks like it's trying its hardest to look futuristic and expensive, and just ended up looking like it really wanted to be taken seriously and instead got called a fucking grill. Both of these are pretty beefy consoles.
It's not a grill!
I do think the original Xbox 360 had more of a personality, though. You could swap out the faceplates. I think every company tries this at least once and then never again, but this was a neat little idea. At least the PS3's PlayStation logo could be rotated based on its orientation. Yeah, we need new models. The slim variants of both systems. Now, I will say both of these were desperately needed. The PS3 needed a more cost-effective and attractive model, and the 360 needed a model that actually worked. Definitely, the 360S was the most necessary revision, with the original being plagued by the red ring of death, no Wi-Fi built in, no HDMI built in. Yeah, this was definitely needed. The least expensive model only had 4 gigabytes of storage. Oh, that's worthless. To be fair, around 2007, Microsoft released the Xbox 360 Elite with HDMI built in. Still the original design. I'm worried this is going to catch on fire, and I don't even own one. The PS3 Slim, while it was a bit of a stripped-down version in comparison to the original, it was an excellent upgrade in terms of aesthetics. This system looks so good and still retains a lot of the character of the original model. Of course, you can always go cheaper, so Sony released the PS3 Super Slim. Please go back. So this is kind of cute. Look at this. It's like a bathroom stall. The disc tray is a bit problematic on here. It's not terrible, but it's so much cheaper. It's so much louder. Half the time when I open it, pop a disc in and shut it, it doesn't shut all the way, and I have to nudge it slightly to get it closed properly. And this one started at 12 gigabytes of storage. Oh, yes! Now, this was obviously made to be a super cheap entry-level PS3. It's nowhere near as sturdy or substantial feeling as the Slim or the original. I can't say this is a bad option to have. It's still a PS3. It's fine. I like that they tried something different and stupid, but it is undoubtedly the cheapest feeling one. It just doesn't feel like it matters. Well, Microsoft decided to complete the third consoles and came up with this during sleep paralysis. The Xbox 360e. This is one of my least favorite looking consoles of all time. This released the same year as the Xbox One, so they decided to redesign the 360 to look more like the Xbox One. Who doesn't want to look more like the original Xbox One? The 360 has had a great look. I liked how sleek it was, how it was subtly X-shaped.
What's up, man?
So why do this? It just looks confused and scared. So both consoles had ups and downs with their designs, but if I had to choose one, I'd say the PS3 was the most consistently solid. I don't hate any of these designs. The Super was totally cheap and the original was totally fat, but they all look at the very least fine.
Yo, DMM, I appreciate you, baby. Thank you so much.
Wi-Fi, HDMI, it was on its deathbed as soon as you bought it. It had problems, and while the S was a great upgrade to reliability, features, and overall design,
and definitely, I would like to find something that will make me stream more consistently, right?
The controller is what makes video games a thumb man's game. The Xbox 360 is often cited as having one of the best controllers of all time. It just feels so substantial. The button placement, the sticks, triggers, everything feels perfect.
Yeah, I can't lie. The 360 controller was good.
They updated it later on to a transforming D-pad, swing it around to be actively okay. It uses AA batteries for power, but it was a bit outdated even for the time. Microsoft would later release play and charge kits though, which allowed you to simply use a rechargeable battery. You had to pay extra for it, but at least you have the option. But overall, this is still easily one of the greatest controllers out there. Now on a completely unrelated note, the PlayStation 3 controller. So it initially released as the 6-axis, which had no rumble. That got updated to the DualShock 3, which was everything the 6-axis was, but with rumble. I was waiting to be confused today. But all PS3 controllers basically look the same, which means they all look the same as PS2 controllers, which look the same as PS1 controllers, which were basically the same as a Super Nintendo controller. Sony used the exact same controller design for 3 consoles at this point. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, sure, but they kept cramming these modern technologies into a decade-old design, and because of that, it was easy to see some cracks forming. It's a bit small for my liking. I was never the biggest fan of the thumbstick placements. They added analog triggers, but the way they're designed make it easy for your fingers to slip off of them. There's also not as much weight to this controller as the 360s, which makes this
that controller was so light. Wait, he said that there's no weight to it. No, I can't lie. This thing, you could chuck this shit and it will fly. It was so lightweight, even with the dual rumble or whatever. The Xbox controller was heavier. I remember that. It felt a bit sturdier. But I don't know. I like the fact that the DualShock was very lightweight.
Controller, I don't feel it at all. Now, the controller is rechargeable out of the box, which is a nice feature. However, while the battery life is pretty alright, the 360...
Oh my god, he's playing Killzone. This was one of like the best looking games on the PS3. When it came out, everybody was talking about Killzone's graphics. But man, this game played so clunky. It was so clunky, dude. Like, I felt like... the movement, it felt like you were Batman or some shit, and you could only move with your whole shoulders and shit. Like, every time you turned, it was like, oh my god, it felt bad. I hated it. But the game looked great. I beat the game. I thought it was good, but man.
Controller with AA lasted quite a bit longer. Now, PS3 does have motion controls. You can tilt the controller around, but my holy shit god is it gimmicky. I find it funny how people consider the Wii gimmicky back then, and justifiably so. But the PS3 controller had motion controls as well, and every implementation I've seen of motion controls with this controller were some of the most unnecessary garbage of all time. At least the Wii had bowling going for it. Now, the PS3 controller does look pretty classy. It looks more elegant. If a 360 controller's on your couch, I immediately think you cheat on your girlfriend and your fingernails look disgusting. This has more class. But it's still better in nearly every way to me. Better layout, better feel, better battery life, no unnecessary gimmicks, a few little issues, but this is pretty damn near close to perfect. The PS3 controller isn't bad, but it's just not as rock solid as the competition. The Xbox 360 had so many accessories. A way to play HD movies, a Wi-Fi adapter. Did the PS3 have those? Oh, the PlayStation 3 was the ultimate package. You could play Blu-rays right out of the box, use HDMI, connect to Wi-Fi, play PS1 games, PS2 games, everything. As long as you had the best models. So some of these features, namely Wi-Fi connectivity and PS2 game support, were taken out of lower-end PS3s originally to make them as cheap as possible. That does make buying these older models a bit more confusing, as most people don't really know how to differentiate a PS2-compatible Wi-Fi-enabled PS3 in the wild. That's why it's easier to compare the features of the second revisions of each console onwards, and easily, the PS3 still has the most features. Of course, Blu-ray support out of the box. Now, the Xbox 360 had an adapter to play HD DVDs, you're welcome, humanity, but the fact you had to buy a separate disc drive for a soon-to-be obsolete format at the time, it just didn't stack up to the PS3. That was one of the biggest draws for the system, the Blu-ray support. It was the only system to have it at the time, and it was a great feature. Of course, you had the Xbox Live Vision camera, which was just a garbage webcam, you can't forget that. that. PS3 had the PlayStation Eye, but both of these evolved into the major accessories for the console, the Kinect and PlayStation Move. The Kinect was a camera that could sense your whole body. You could control the games with no controller. The PlayStation Move used the PlayStation Eye to read wands. And the Kinect automatically had more marketing potential and definitely did better right out the gate. The Move was a fine accessory, but it more so felt like a way to let the PS3 play Wii-type games. The Kinect, as terrible as it could be, allowed for much more...
Nah, I can't lie though. The PlayStation Move, playing like those first-person shooter games like the arcade, like House of the Dead, Resident Evil, I don't know, Terminator, those games are so fucking fun. If you got like the actual PlayStation controller and you have the accessories, it's like you're playing like in the movies. It's nice.
Possibilities with games not playable with standard controllers. But at least the PlayStation Move didn't take its company and obliterate it for 4 years straight. Kinect forced Microsoft into a casual entertainment perspective and made them lack ambition in the gaming landscape. The PlayStation Move, while it wasn't as exciting at the time, it was used in less offensive ways. It was often just an option and it worked well for the most part. It was a side thing for Sony rather than their core focus. But Kinect had more games for it that I think justified a purpose. Like, why would you buy a PlayStation Move to make people leave your house? There just wasn't a ton of compelling software for it. Now, Kinect had a ton more absolute garbage, but it at least justified itself with some titles. Plus, the idea was more novel than PlayStation Move. With that said, I think all the features packed into the PlayStation 3, plus its motion controller being non-obtrusive and fine. I think I'll give the features and accessories point to PS3. Kinect had more purpose, but it was bogged down with imprecise controls, terrible games, and overall tanking Microsoft's image in the latter half of the 360's life. Games like Kinect Sports and Dance Central may have been decent enough to warrant a purchase and were more iconic than the entirety of games that required PlayStation Move, but they just aren't a big enough deal to really make me vastly prefer the Kinect to the Move. I could go with one or the other most of the time, but with the PS3's suite of features, I think it takes this round. Which of these systems is the easiest to use while not compromising on options? Well, the 360's user interface has changed 3 times throughout the years, each one having their own fans until landing on this one. Honestly, I never had much of a problem with this interface. It's quick and snappy, everything is laid out in an understandable fashion, it makes sense. I don't think I've had to look up where certain things are on Google or anything. A few more advertisements than I prefer, but hey, this works quite well. The PS3 has had the cross-media bar since launch. It's updated a bit, but it's generally been the same 5 throughout the years.
Man, I kind of miss that user interface. This UI was so nice. Like, it was so minimalistic, and I just feel like it was straight to the point. I really liked it.
I do like this. I think it's well thought out. It makes sense. You have all the general things you can do on the left and right, and then up and down are the options within the option you've selected. Though I do think that this interface is a bit bland compared to all of the 360s, and it does have a bit too many options. If we go to settings, it's really difficult to tell which setting is the specific setting you want to use. It's great if you really want to get down and dirty with your PS3, but if I want to adjust something, half the time I don't know which option to pick. I definitely have to Google how to adjust things every time, but hey, at least we have tons of things to mess around with. But holy shit, do I hate using this thing. The PS3 is a temperamental child. There's always something going on with it. Of course, the infamous updates. Pretty much every time I boot a game up, there's an update. There's something I have to install. Of course, most of the time I can't do anything in the background. I have to sit and watch this thing load. And this thing freezes up so much more than the 360.
Nah, hold up. It freezes up more. Nah. He had a shitty console. I had no... The update thing I could agree on. The shit freezing constantly? Nah, you probably got some shitty console, nah.
Installing, loading, updates. I'm always at the edge of my seat when the PS3 is doing any of this because there's a solid chance something's gonna go wrong. The Xbox 360 is simpler and just works most of the time. I pop in a game, if it has to update, it downloads it pretty fast. Barely any games have to install stuff. Its user interface is simple but gives me the options I want. The PS3 is in the top 40 worst PlayStation consoles, but on a more positive note, it's in the top 40 best. Online play was incredibly important during this generation. I should know, I barely used it. But both of these systems did lean heavily into the online multiplayer crowd. If you were buying one of these systems, you gave a shit. Xbox 360 was generally considered
online in the 360 I think was cooler because you could have your own profile and you could like customize your shit. And people could see your name, people could see your rep, people could see your gamer score. I thought that was awesome. I was really jealous of that when I had a PlayStation and everybody was doing, you know, Xbox shit. Because this is cool. You got like your own tag. And people could see it. In PlayStation, you kind of could just see the username, but that's it. And then it was damn near impossible to change your name. They recently just gave us the ability to change our name, I think about like 2 or 3 years ago. Finally. But yeah. Also, it's just like, you know, looks cool.
Multiplayer crowd. If you were buying one of these systems, you gave a shit. Xbox 360 was generally considered the king of online multiplayer. Connection was great, the interface for setting up parties and hopping into games was simple and intuitive. Good stuff. PS3 wasn't bad, but wasn't as elegant and wasn't nearly as feature-packed as the 360 was in its early years. It took a while, but the PS3 eventually got everything together and was pretty competent. But there was one big point against Xbox Live. You had to pay for it.
Yeah, that's why when I was on my PlayStation shit, I was like, this shit's free. I don't even gotta pay for this shit. You motherfuckers gotta actually pay to play online. My shit is free.
No, that's not fair. I have a mouth to feed. Xbox Live Gold was $60 a year. Now, per year, that's not too bad. That's pretty reasonable. But if you wanted a slightly spottier service for free a year, you could buy a PS3 and spend that $60 you would have spent on online multiplayer on a new video game. Instead, you could have paid for surgery. Now, Sony did offer a paid online service, PlayStation Plus. This service gave you the ability to play betas for upcoming games, gave you exclusive sale prices for games, and updates could be downloaded to your console automatically instead of having to sit through it every time. You had to pay for that? The biggest deal was that you would get free games every month downloaded to your system for as long as you kept your Plus membership. Xbox would later offer monthly free games for Xbox Live Gold members in 2013, right before their next console would come out. Great. PlayStation Plus was kinda cool, but they lacked some weird features behind a premium paywall. But just to watch something like Netflix on the Xbox 360, something you already had to pay for monthly, you needed a gold subscription. That's dumb. But if I had to choose between the two, the 360 did have the better online component. Both did some dumb things, but we're also used to paying for online multiplayer now that it's not that big of a deal. Generally
Nah,
speaking,
hold on. We're talking about the time, though. He's like, oh, we're used to paying for things now. No, that doesn't make... We're not talking about now. We're talking about how it was back in the day. A lot of people was complaining about that. Like, people back in the day was like, why the fuck I gotta pay for online when Sony is doing it for free and the internet connection is damn near the same? He was so, like, I don't know, man.
console looked the best. Well, most people probably know the PlayStation 3 was more powerful.
But like I said, though, the Xbox interface was still better, in my opinion. The interface was way better. Like, in terms of, like, having friend groups, you could do chats, you could play music in game, how the place looked, how you could design your card, all that just looked better.
Xbox 360. Yes, most people. Ask Scott Asner, he'd know. But when you compare the two, they are pretty on par with each other. While many PS3 exclusives looked phenomenal at the time, the 360 games didn't look that much worse. In fact, because the 360 had a bigger install base for most of its life and was easier to develop for, most third-party games ended up looking better on 360 because they were made with that hardware in mind. Now, this isn't a huge deal. By better, I really mean we're splitting hairs here, but 360 does look slightly nicer. Playing something like BioShock Infinite on the PS3, I do notice a lot more dirty-looking textures compared to the 360 version. The third-party games look and run a bit better on 360 most of the time. And while there are a handful of cases where the PS3 version of a game is drastically worse than the 360 one, most of the time, it's not that noticeable. Playing the PS3 version isn't much different at all from the 360 one. But the developers working exclusively with the PS3, the developers who actually
you see, I did play Ni no Kuni, chat. I told y'all. This game was heat on the PS3, but man.
to figure out how to use the system to the best of its abilities. Oh my god, some of these games look just as good as PlayStation 4 titles. Just comparing two exclusives for each system that released in 2011, Gears of War 3 and Uncharted 3, Uncharted does look better to me. But the 360 can do some really impressive stuff, like really impressive. Just like a Rise of the Tomb Raider on the system from 2015. This was an Xbox One game, but the 360 version looks incredible for the console. It doesn't even require an install or multiple discs. The Xbox 360 can put out some crazy graphics, but the PlayStation 3 at its best will always look a little bit better to me. God, I hope my new video game console can play my older games even though I'll never play them. Backwards compatibility is such a luxury to have even if you barely use it. And the PlayStation 3 initially was set to be the ultimate PlayStation. It could play all generations. And then the PS2 support was taken out of the cheaper models to cut costs. And then they got rid of it entirely. But hey, the Xbox 360 can play original Xbox games. This is the ultimate pleasure. Could you imagine a worse note to get on your windshield? So both consoles have trouble with playing older games. All PS3s play PS1 discs, but a specific version of the original model is the only one that can play PS2 games. Some PS1 and PS2 games are available to download from the PlayStation Network store, and various PS2 games were re-released in high definition.
Yo, they have Persona in the store?
And play PS2 games. Some PS1 and PS2 games are available to download from...
they have Persona 4 for $10? That's a steal! Persona 4, not even golden. That's just regular Persona 4 in the PlayStation store for $10? Bro, they had all the Crash Bandicoot games for $6? Yeah, Final Fantasy, what is that? 8? Final Fantasy 8? Yeah, Bully. Yo, these prices are actually nice.
From the PlayStation Network store, and various PS2 games were re-released in high definition via collection, so regardless, you had some options on PS3. The Xbox 360 can play a little less than half of the original Xbox library. Microsoft would update the 360 every now and then, offering more and more original Xbox games that were supported until they just gave up. Even though most of the major Xbox releases you'd care to play are supported, many of them have issues. The Wikipedia list of the Xbox games that were backwards compatible has a specific column denoting issues, so that says it all right there. However, all games run fine enough. Many older titles were re-released via downloads on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network, and while Xbox Live Arcade was easily the more popular of the two, most legacy titles appeared on both services. These two both have their problems with playing legacy content, but the PS3 had the most options and always supported PS1 discs. I already talked about how third-party multi-platform games generally looked and ran better on Xbox 360, and yeah, that's generally the case. Sometimes third-party games have to install trash on PS3, but they just immediately boot on the 360. Like, come on. Most of the time, the graphical differences are incredibly minor. It's to the point where I'd say, if you're playing a third-party game on PS3, you don't have much to worry about, is not a big deal. But to combat any graphical differences, many third-party PS3 games offer exclusive content, whether that's exclusive characters in fighting games, exclusive missions and modes, PlayStation Move support, that's all pretty cool. Xbox 360 versions really didn't have much to offer in comparison. I mean, Call of Duty DLC came to Xbox first. Oh, jeez, I better get Black Ops 2 in 2020. But most of the time, PS3 offered legitimate gameplay reasons to want to own that version instead of the 360 one. Even having PlayStation Move support in BioShock Infinite, that's way cooler than offering Kinect support in Mass Effect 3, where it's literally just screeching at your Xbox to make choices on screen. And some people like playing shooters with motion controls. It was a cooler incentive than noise complaints. However, a lot of these exclusive features didn't amount to a lot. They were cool incentives, but to be honest, most third-party games were made for Xbox 360, and thus, they just work better on the platform. Most major third-party games came to each console. You weren't missing out on much if you were a big THQ nut and you owned a 360. What this all boils down to is, which console had the best exclusive game?
Alright, hold on. I actually gotta play this part slow because a Pokemon song is playing that I really like.
They just work better on the platform. Most major third-party games came to each console. You weren't missing out on much if you were a big THQ nut and you owned a 360. What this all boils down to is, which console had the best exclusive games? The Xbox 360 had Halo, Gears of War, Fable, Forza, Crackdown. The PlayStation 3 had Uncharted, Resistance, Little Big Planet, Ratchet & Clank, Sly Cooper, Killzone, Infamous, God of War, Metal Gear Solid 4, Gran Turismo, Mod Nation Racers, Puppeteer, The Last of Us. Okay, this may be a bit unfair. To give Microsoft credit, they did quite a good job in the first half of the 360's life with exclusives. I mean, Halo 3 launching will always be one of the biggest events in gaming history. Even looking at the best PlayStation 3 exclusives, they just don't hold a candle to the amount of excitement around the world for that one game. Gears of War was huge, and Forza took over the racing sim crown from Gran Turismo. Like, my god, they had Forza games releasing every single year, and the Gran Turismo team was just like, here's a prequel to Gran Turismo 5, because for some reason we're taking 20 years to make it. And then for some reason they put out Gran Turismo 6 after the PlayStation 4 launched. With digital bite-sized titles, Xbox Live Arcade was far better. They had so many fun experiences on there. PSN, they secured games like BioShock and Mass Effect. Mass Effect 2 was exclusive for a year. Now, each of these games came to PS3 eventually, and timed exclusives aren't my idea for a fun afternoon, but it at least showed they meant business. They got Grand Theft Auto to jump away from being a timed PlayStation exclusive franchise. They got Final Fantasy to come to Xbox finally. They really cared, and then they gave up. Once Kinect rolled around, they let their guard down, and while Sony was already starting to kill it, they really went crazy funding exclusive content. Not only were they making amazing exclusive games,
Oh, look at that Infamous, man. Infamous was so good.
but sequels to those games. And not only were these games great, but they had a huge variety of games exclusive to PlayStation 3. There's a reason the only things people think about when
Fat Princess. I remember I had this game. I bought this game in the store. I think it was like 10 or 15 bucks.
Xbox is brought up are Halo, Gears of War, and Forza. Kinect exclusives could be sort of cute, but right when
that
I
Han
said that,
Solo?
Sony put out The Last of Us. Jesus. One of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. That got so many people to buy a PS3. And then you had some of the more unknown games. Puppeteer is really charming. And not all PS3 exclusives were winners. Some of them definitely missed the mark, but many PS3 exclusives were truly experiences worth investing in a PS3 for. The PS3 may have been rough around the edges and difficult to use in many areas, but I don't even have to finish this sentence. So the PS3 won, which is weird
I can't
considering
believe
that I used a 360 back in the day. To be fair, it could have gone either way, but based on my personal taste at the moment, I think the PS3 comes out on top. Even if it's an absolute bitch to use. But, turns out,
How's it a bitch to use, Scott? It's so easy.
I'm not blinded by nostalgia or love for a specific company. I picked the PS3 when the 360 was the console I owned, so that's a plus to my reviewing skills. The only thing the PS3 could use is a version of Mario Party 9. This game's actually terrible, but I love it because it's made by Nintendo.
Wait, Mario Party 9 was made by Nintendo? Or is he just saying like, wait, isn't all the Mario Parties made by Nintendo?